Welcome to the Chasing Spirituality podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today. Each episode is full of heartfelt and expansive content that will really help you expand your consciousness and grow as a person. I created this podcast because I wanted to share my own personal experiences on my spiritual journey, but I also wanted to meet others and have them share what they've been through and how they've gotten to where they are today. If you haven't done so already, it would really mean a lot to me if you could rate and review the podcast. This really helps the podcast grow and reach more people, but it also allows me to get more guests on the show. Now on to today's topic. Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Chasing Spirituality. I'm your host Megan, and I'm super excited that you're joining me today, that you've decided to just spend a little bit of your day with me. And if you're new here, welcome. This is my podcast that's been going on for over 2 years now, and I like to just come on here and share messages that I feel are important. I feel that they're relevant and that they're going to help you in some way. At least that's the goal. And I always end up talking about things that I've either gone through or things that I'm going through, things that I work on, or things that I feel my clients and my community have brought up. And so today I'm feeling called to talk about our perception and the way that we perceive our reality, the way that we perceive our environment, and how that really truly shapes who we are. And I want to just have you think about what I just said for a minute, okay? Your perception of everything, your perception of who you are, your perception of who your family is, of who your friends are, your perception of your work, your perception of everything that you do in your life is what shapes and creates your reality. And I've been receiving this message off and on from my spirit team lately. And they really brought this message through to me pretty strongly, I would say, several weeks ago. I was in meditation and I'd been feeling kind of down about myself, kind of icky about just how I looked, and I wasn't really feeling good about myself, to be honest. I wasn't feeling very attractive. I wasn't feeling very beautiful or sexy. And obviously, the work that I've done, the shadow work that I've done and the work that I've done on myself, I've had a lot of realizations around that. I've had a lot of epiphanies around that. And sometimes, you kind of chalk it up to superficial things, right? When you're not feeling good about yourself, when you're not feeling worthy, you usually have something in your way that shapes why you feel that way, or at least you think you have reasons why you feel that way. It could be your weight. Maybe you feel like you're, too thin or too skinny, or you're too heavy, you weigh too much. Maybe you feel like you're not healthy, or you just don't feel beautiful. There's things that you have that kind of support these beliefs. And what my guides told me when I was feeling this way and I was criticizing the way that I looked, they told me that all of that is my perception. All of those beliefs that I have, even if I have reasons or excuses to support that belief, it's still my beliefs. It's still my reality that I'm creating. I am just inventing these supporting beliefs. And a lot of times that's controlled by things that we were told, things that we were taught, people in our lives that may have judged us or criticized us. Sometimes it's due to society. You know, there's lots of pressure from our friends and our peers and our social groups to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to look a certain way. And so it's not just about looks, you know, it could be really anything. If you're a parent, it could be that you feel like you have all of these endless expectations to meet to be a good mom or to be a good dad. Or maybe it's around, you know, being a good sister or a good brother or a good spouse. You know, we have all of these ideas that have been implanted in us that we feel like we have all of these expectations to live up to. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having values and having your own expectations that you want to meet. But your perception of those things also creates how you currently feel. It creates your own vibrational state. And I've been talking about energy and vibration in several of my recent episodes. So this is going to kind of tie into all of that as well, because your current state of mind and how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your life and the people around you, it is also vibration. And you're tuning in to the vibration of your perception. How you perceive things is what will be. If you perceive yourself to not be good enough, if you perceive yourself to be ugly or unworthy or undeserving or a bad person, then you're going to see that reflected in your environment. You're going to create that reality due to the perception that you have. And so it's really important that when we're trying to be a better person, when we're really trying to cultivate the life that we want to live and become the best version of ourselves, that we understand how important our own beliefs are when it comes to reaching that new level of potential, to reaching the heights that you're wanting to reach. We really have to check the way that we are perceiving everything around us. And I see this a lot when we interact with other people. A lot of times we have these expectations of how things are going to turn out, how things are supposed to be, or how we expect things to turn out, how we want things to turn out, how we want other people to act, how we want certain outcomes to present themselves or come about. And there's really a difference between setting goals, setting expectations, manifesting, and living in a false identity, living in a false reality. And I've come to realize that when we are triggered, when someone triggers us, or when something in our environment triggers us, that is the perfect opportunity to check those beliefs, to look at our perception of things, because we control that. And that is the only thing that we can control at the end of the day. The only person's actions and beliefs and thoughts and emotions that you have any say so of whatsoever are your own. So we get caught in these traps of wanting to control every outcome, wanting to control how other people respond, how other people react, what other people say, what other people do. And if it doesn't always match what we want, that can cause us to become triggered. You might become resentful or bitter or angry. And there's nothing wrong with these emotions. I want to definitely encourage you to feel into these, to look into these, and to really check what it is that is causing this trigger. And I talked about this a lot in my triggered episode, so feel free to go back and check that out. But at the end of the day, the only person that you can control is yourself. And so when you are interacting with other people, when you're living your life, and something doesn't turn out the way that you expected it to, or the way that you wanted it to, what kind of labels are you putting on those experiences, on those outcomes? Are you labeling the other person as a bad person? Are you labeling them as selfish? Are you labeling a situation as toxic or troublesome in some way? And sometimes that ends up being the case. Sometimes there are people that we decide are no longer good for us, that we need to cut out of our lives. And that's totally fine. Do that. Do what you need to do. But what perception of the situation are you controlling? What perception are you in control of? I find that most of our misery and most of our troubles come from expectation of how we want others to respond. And when you can detach from other people and what they say, what they do, how they act, or even a situation, if you can detach yourself from a situation and how you expected it to play out versus how it actually played out, it can really alleviate a lot of the pain and the suffering that come along with that expectation, which again comes from our perception and our labels that we put on those things. So a trick that I typically use when I find myself falling into those traps of expectation that are clouding my perception of things, I try to detach myself from the expectation of what I expected, of what I wanted, of the outcome or the label that I was hoping for. And then I go back in within myself and say, okay, this did not play out the way that I wanted it to, or this person did not respond or react the way that I feel is right. So what can I do now? What do I have control over? What actions can I take that align me, that align myself with truth, with authenticity? Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make you happy. Someone else, what they do, what they say, that's not going to make you happy. What makes you happy is when you support yourself, when you are true to yourself, when you stand up for yourself, when you speak your truth into existence. Not only are you being your number one supporter and aligning yourself with your highest truth and your highest potential, but you're also mirroring that for everyone around you. You're showing everyone around you that it doesn't matter what actions they take. It doesn't matter how they respond or how they react. They're not going to control you. You are going to control you. And I find that, yes, this can sometimes cause confrontation and it can make people upset because people like to be in control. Ask yourself, do you like to be in control? Most of us do. And what happens to you when you feel out of control? When you feel that you're in a situation that you can't necessarily control someone else's response or reaction, or you can't control the outcome of an event or of a circumstance. What does it feel like for you when you feel out of control? This is definitely a root chakra issue. This is a um a fear-based issue. This comes from feeling like you need to be in control your environment, control the people around you to feel safe. And when our root chakra is out of balance, we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe to be ourselves. We don't feel safe to be authentic. We don't feel safe to set boundaries, to speak our mind, to speak our truth into existence. So it's about taking that step back and saying, okay, this is my reality. This is my perception of things. And in spite of everyone else, in spite of everything else that's going on, what can I control? We get hung up on all of the things that we can't control. The things that fell through, the plans that got canceled, the people that didn't respond the way that we wanted them to, the people who didn't show up for us the way that we wanted them to show up for us. What can you do that still aligns you with your best self? Depending on your situation, depending on what the circumstance is, it's going to look different. But this is where all of the things that I talk about in this podcast and all of the things that you've been working on are going to come back into play. It's about integrating all of those things that you know are good for you. Integrating those lessons and all those teachings that you've been listening to, that you've been developing, that you've been working on, like boundaries. If you're stuck in a situation where your needs are not being met, when someone is not responding to you the way that you feel like you should be responded to, when you feel like you're not getting what you deserve, when you feel like you're not getting what you're worth, is it a time to set boundaries? Is it a time to speak your truth, to communicate, to tell people how you feel? Is it a time for you to make a decision? To make a decision that changes your life path, that changes your career, that changes your circumstance, your living situation, whatever that looks like. What can you do to go back within and bring forth the person, the energy, the vibration that you're trying to cultivate? Other people do not control that. Other people do not control your beliefs. Other people do not control your actions. Other people do not control your emotions and how you react. Yes, other people can be a mirror for us, and other people can trigger us. But again, those are just stepping stones. Those are just lessons. Those are just mirrors for us to see where inside of us are we not being authentic. How can we express ourselves more? How can we set boundaries more? How can we change things in our environment that make us feel seen, that make us feel safe, that make us feel heard? And no, this is not always easy, but when you take away the expectation of what others can do for you, what others are supposed to do for you, the expectation of how you think things are supposed to be, and you focus on what's happening presently. What can you do in the present moment that will align you with the best version of yourself, that will align you with the outcome that you're trying to achieve or the person that you're trying to be? What action steps can you take that will create that reality for you? No one else can do that for you. Only you can do that for yourself. This is kind of similar to my assumptions episode that we talked about several episodes back, where when we assume things of people, when we assume an outcome, when we assume how things are supposed to be, how people are supposed to treat us, and how they're supposed to act and react, it often leads to disappointment. Not to say that in like a pessimistic way, it's just the only person you can control is you. The only perception that you can control is yours. The only reality that you can control is yours. And I want to share a little story to kind of show you how perception is super important. So I heard that, I think I've shared this on the podcast before. It's probably been a long time though, so I'm going to share it again. And I heard this story on another podcast that I used to listen to um, several years ago. I haven't listened to it in a long time, and it's a really good podcast, so I should probably go back and listen. But the podcast is called Science and Spirituality. It's a great podcast, so you should definitely go check it out if you haven't. But they shared this story about there were two shoemakers, and they were on a plane and they were flying to a new country. And when they got off the plane, the first guy steps out and he sees that nobody is wearing shoes. And he's like, wow, nobody's wearing shoes. Like, how in the world am I going to sell shoes here? How am I going to sell shoes to all these people? They don't wear shoes. And then the second shoemaker gets off the plane and he says, wow, nobody is wearing shoes. Look at all of these people that I can sell shoes to. Same situation, same profession, and they had two completely different perceptions. So I really want you to think about the way that you perceive things, the way that you perceive your environment, the way that you perceive your interactions, the way that you perceive yourself, your friendships, your relationships, your work. However you're perceiving things is going to control your environment. It's going to shape the way things happen. Another example, when you're having a bad day, right? Let's say that you wake up late and you're rushing to get ready, your alarm didn't go off, and then you stay in this state of mind of rushing, of running late, of now my day is going to be ruined. Now my day is, I'm going to have to rush everywhere. I'm not going to get to work on time. I'm not going to get to this appointment on time. My kids are going to be late for school. The dogs are going to be stuck in the house all day. Like whatever kind of things start to come up when you start to enter this state of perception that your day is now just screwed. Your day is just going to be bad because it started off bad. We all have bad days, so I don't want you to feel guilty. I don't want you to feel bad that this has happened to you. It happens to all of us. But I want you to really think about the energy of that for a minute. And I want you to think about how you could have potentially created the rest of your day turning out worse than what it could have. Okay? That's your responsibility. That's your perception. That's the vibration that you have tuned into. If you're expecting your day to be bad, if your perception of how your morning's going to be now because you're in that state of mind, chances are you're going to continue to run into problems. You're going to continue to see things with that angle, from that viewpoint. You're going to continue to see things from that moment of my day sucks. My day's going to be bad. You might be later to work than you expected now. Now you're going to run into a traffic jam. You might spill coffee all over you. You're late to not only your first meeting, but also your second meeting. Like a lot of times when we tune in to that vibration, we're going to stay there. We're going to stay there and we're going to continue to see and perceive things in that manner, in that light. But what if you just tuned a little bit differently and you said, you know what? I woke up late, but there's nothing I can do about it. I can't go back in time. I can't erase what's already happened. I can't go back to sleep and wake up and it automatically be the correct time. So continuing to be upset about it, been out of shape about it, worry about it, get frustrated about it, what good is it doing for you currently in this present moment? And I'm not saying not to honor anything that comes up during those times. If you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling upset, definitely explore those emotions, dive deeper into those emotions, do the inner work that's around those emotions, that's around those scenarios. But at the end of the day, when you feel like you've moved past that a little bit, when you feel like you've gotten through the frustration, you've gotten through the anger or whatever's come up, what can you do presently to change that perception? What can you do? You can't, like I said, you can't go back in time. You can't change what's already been done. So what can you do to now create the reality that you want presently? Because the only thing that matters is how you are responding, how you're feeling, how you're reacting, and what you're doing in the present moment. What happened in the past is in the past. We're not time walkers. We can't go back and change things. All we can do is stick forward on the current path that we're on. Be the best version of who we are right now. Sometimes that's easier said than done, and I know that. But we all get stuck in those traps, right? We all get stuck in those, oh, I should have done this. Oh, I wish I would have done that. Oh, let me beat myself up because I didn't do this right, because I made a mistake. Well, we all make mistakes. We've all overslept. We've all had bad days. So what are you doing to move forward? What are you doing to tap into your greatest potential now? Your greatest potential currently. If there's nothing that you can do to change what's already been done, then why worry about it? Why continue to create more suffering for something that is out of your control? I find that this is often something that we do as humans. We overthink and our thoughts get the best of us. We criticize ourselves and we put ourselves down and we beat ourselves up for things that we shouldn't. The only thing that you can do is be the best version of who you are in the present moment. Who are you right now? How do you feel right now? What can you do right now that aligns you with that inner truth, that aligns you with that person that you want to be, that aligns you with the reality that you want to live? And I like to look at things that we often do beat ourselves up about, or traps that I do find a lot of people get caught into, other than, past traps where we find ourselves regretting the past and wishing we would have done things differently. I find that that's just honestly super silly. Like, I really do. I find that just really silly now. I've done a lot of work on that area. I used to regret things a lot. And it's taken a lot of work on myself to forgive myself for things that I didn't do correctly, things that I'm not proud of, things that I didn't know when I just didn't know it. But I have healed a lot in that area. So I really do find that dwelling on things that we cannot control, things that we cannot change, I do find that silly now. But there are things that we also focus on currently that are really pointless, and they're really not true to who we are and where we're going and the reality that we're trying to create. So if you look back at like what I was saying with like our looks and how we criticize ourselves and we focus on all the things about us that we don't like, all the things about us that we're insecure about, all the things that we're not proud of. When we focus on those things, we are just recreating that reality. If you feel that you're not beautiful, if you feel that you're not attractive, if you feel like you're not worthy, that you don't deserve nice things, what lies are you telling yourself that are creating that reality? Can we replace those beliefs? Can we replace those lies with things that support you, things that nurture you, things that make you feel good? For every negative thing that you say or feel or think about yourself or someone else or about your situation, what can you replace that with? If you're not happy with your weight, is that truly who you are? Are you just your weight? Is your purpose, your identity, your worth, is all of that just based on superficial things? On your appearance? On how you look? I know we live in a superficial society, but no. There are so many wonderful and beautiful things about you. And really paying attention to your closest friends, the people that you love and trust, what kind of things do they say about you? What kind of things do they love about you? Do they criticize you the way that you criticize yourself? Do they have a problem with your looks? Do they have a problem with your weight? Do they think that you're unworthy of the things that you want? Talk to them. If it's too hard for you to see that within yourself, talk to them and see if you can try to see yourself through their eyes. Because most people that have an issue with themselves, that they don't like the way that they look or the way that they talk, or they think that they're weird, or they think that they're goofy, or, whatever it is, most of the time, your friends, your closest family members, those are the things that they love about you. Those are the things that they adore about you. So in their reality, you're beautiful. From their perspective, you're an amazing soul. You're a wonderful friend. You deserve so many beautiful things. And I'm sure that if you've got a great support system and you've got a great family or friends, that they tell you these things. They tell you that you're beautiful, that you're lovely, that you're strong and an amazing friend, an amazing person. And if they don't, then you probably need new friends. You need a new support system. And that's okay. That's when those boundaries come in. That's when it's time to take a step back and say, oh, wait. Hold up. Something's not right here. From other people's perceptions, most of the time I bet that you can see that they see you differently than you see yourself. And if they have a different perspective of you, if they have a different perception of who you are, then you can too. You can easily tune into that. You can easily feel the way that they feel about you towards yourself. You just have to work through those lies, those limiting beliefs, those false ideas that you have about who you are. So changing your perspective, changing your perception of your life, of who you are, of what you want, of what you deserve, of how you look, all of that falls back on you. It's just easier to see it when you try to see things from other people's eyes, when you try to see things from other people's points of view. It goes to show you that we truly do all have different perceptions. We all have different realities. Thinking back to the story of the shoemakers. Two completely different shoemakers going to the same place, seeing the same people, had two different perceptions. They had two different takes on how they were going to impact the people around them. There was no difference between them other than their own beliefs, than their own thoughts, their own perception that they created. This can get tricky, and it's not always easy. But the first step is calling yourself out, checking yourself when you're trying to judge a situation, when you're trying to control a situation, when you're trying to change something that can't be changed. Having awareness around what you're telling yourself, the beliefs that you're tuning into. Is it truly that you're not beautiful? That you're not worthy? That you don't deserve the things that you want? Or is it the beliefs that you have about yourself that are creating that? When we can change the way that we feel on the inside, when we can change our values, when we can change ourselves for the better, we can change our entire world, because our perception then changes. And I've seen so much growth in myself and in people that I work with, people in my community, just by them doing the inner work. And I'm sure that you can also see how you've changed, and how the person that you were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, is not the person that you are today. That's not by accident. That's not by coincidence. That's because you have changed your beliefs. You have changed the way that you perceive the world, the way that you perceive yourself, the way that you perceive others. It doesn't mean that all the work is all done. There's always still more work to do. But what can you do currently to bring yourself into that present moment and appreciate where you are right now? And what actions can you take? Not force on other people, not expect from other people. What actions can you take that will align you with your truth, that will align you with the best version of yourself? So I think that pretty much covers today's message. So I have a few just reminders and updates that I'll touch on before we end today's episode. On September 20th, that's Wednesday at 6:30 Central Eastern Time, we will be doing the live community call. We're going to be working on clairvoyance, and this is going to be a group call for all of us where we're just going to practice. It's going to be really laid back. I really think we're just going to have a lot of fun. We're going to use some different practice techniques and things that I have found to be really helpful when we're trying to really grow and tap in to the gift of clairvoyance. If you are a community member, that is a free circle. And if you're not a community member, I encourage you to go and check that out. It is a monthly subscription. You can find out more on my website, chasingspirituality.com. The week after, on the 27th, that's going to be our monthly practice circle where we practice on a picture of someone. We'll tune into their energy and we'll just kind of use all of our gifts and see what comes up, and kind of do like a practice reading where I do validation. That's also in the community. My September has been really, really busy. My October is also going to be busy. The fall is usually, it's just a really busy season for me. I have children that are in sports, and then we have Halloween and Samhain, and there's just lots of fun things that like I like to do, that things that come up. So if you're looking at booking a session with me, I encourage you to go ahead and look at my calendar and see if there's something on there that works for you before that fills up or before I have to block out more dates. And I'm always interested in getting your episode recommendations or hearing questions that you have about things that I've talked about on this podcast, or maybe things that you heard about on other podcasts. So please, please feel free to email me your suggestions, email me your questions, your podcast episode recommendations. I always like to hear feedback from the listeners so that I can keep creating content that aligns with you and where you're at on your journey. So don't be shy. Definitely email me those. My email is chasingspirituality@yahoo.com. I also have a contact form on my website as well. If you don't follow me on social media, I am on Instagram, chasing.spirituality. I'm on TikTok, Chasing Spirituality, and on Facebook, Chasing Spirituality. And unfortunately, there are a lot of copycat accounts out there. There's especially people on TikTok that are pretending to be me, and they're messaging people. If anyone ever messages you from a Chasing Spirituality account or pretending to be me, it is not me. I will never message you and ask you to pay me for a reading or offer you a reading or say, "Oh, spirit child, I was drawn to your energy. Please pay me $20 so I can deliver this message for you." I'm never going to do that. If I were to message anyone privately, I first of all wouldn't talk like that. Second of all, I would ask your consent to give you a message. And third of all, if I'm going to go out of my way to message you because I feel that strongly to give you a message, I'm not going to charge you for it. I'm not. I'm just going to give you the message if you consent to it. So please, please don't fall for those traps. It is not me. I will never, ever message you and ask you to pay me for a reading. You should always book directly through the links in my Instagram or at my website, chasingspirituality.com. I will never, ever message you and ask you to pay me for a reading. If you're local to me, you can always come visit me at Sky Apothecary. I do readings in person through Sky Healing Services, so you can definitely check that out if you're more interested in something in person. And that's really all I have for this week. I hope that you all have a beautiful day, and I hope that this helped in some way. And have a great one. See you on the next one. This is for anyone who resonates with this podcast and is interested in more spiritual content. Have you checked out the Chasing Spirituality community? Well, you can find out more on my website, chasingspirituality.com. But this community is a wonderful place for you to meet like-minded people, but also be supported in your own authentic expression as you go on your spiritual journey and you learn more about fascinating topics as well as exercise your own spiritual and intuitive gifts. We have lives every single month. There's meditation videos and courses and tons of extra bonus content and videos. So if you're interested in more content, please go check that out. We would love to have you.